Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the nursing class. Today, our topic is about local anesthetics and general anesthetics. I'm Dr. Ramya, Department of Pharmacology. First, we'll talk about local anesthetics. So, what are local anesthetics? Local anesthetics are the drugs which, when are applied directly to the peripheral nerves, they block the nerve conduction and stop or they abolish all the sensations in the part or supplied by the nerve, by that nerve which is blocked. Okay. They are applied to the somatic nerves and act on the axons, cell body, dendrites, and synapses. So the mechanism of action of the local anesthetics is they block both the generation and the conduction of the nerve impulse. First, they bind to the receptors near the intracellular end of the voltage gated sodium channels. I'll show you a pictorial image. With that, you will understand this slide. Okay. So because of this binding to the intracellular receptor, it prevents the permeability, that is entry of the sodium ion. Because of this prevention of the entry, it first blocks the sodium channel. So because of the blocking of the sodium channel, it prevents the depolarization. Because of this stoppage of depolarization, action potential is not generated. So if action potential is not generated, what will happen? Failure of impulse propagation happens. Okay, so there is no impulse. What I have told for in the first point, blocking of both the generation and conduction of nerve impulse. So because of blocking of sodium channel, depolarization does not occur, so action potential is not generated and conduction of nerve impulse is not happening. So sensations are not known by the person. Okay, then next, what will happen without this? There is no effect on the resting potential. So this is known as membrane stabilizing effect. So increased because of this, there is increased extracellular calcium, which antagonizes the local anesthetics on the nerves and muscles, while potassium, it facilitates the same. So wait, I'll show you with this image. So when a local anesthetic is given from the extracellular area, it enters into the intracellular area and it acts in the intracellular local anesthetic receptor. Here it acts and it prevents the entry of the sodium through in the sodium channel. So because of this, what will happen? It prevents the depolarization. Depolarization will not occur and there is no action potential. Okay, this is the mechanism of action of local anesthetics. Okay, so what will happen? First, the small fibers of the axons are blocked. Okay, so the following order, which axons or which nerves are blocked first? So the autonomic fibers are blocked first, then the sensory fibers which conduct the temperature and pain are blocked. Then sensory fibers which are carrying touch, pressure, and vibration sensations. Then motor fibers. So this anesthesia is carried in this manner. Okay, first autonomic fibers, then temperature. So when you are given local anesthesia in a particular area, for example in a hand, or okay, when you apply a cream, local anesthetic cream to the hand, first you will not feel the temperature, then you will not feel the pain, later you will not feel the touch, then pressure, then vibrations, then motor. That means you will not be able to move motor fibers. Motor fibers means you cannot move the hand. Then recovery also will be the same in a reverse manner. Like you will move, then you will feel the touch, pressure. In reverse manner, you will regain the anesthesia. Means, okay. So recovery of the function occurs in the reverse order. Local anesthetics are less effective when injected into an inflamed area. Like if there is any injury or any inflammation in a particular area, if you apply any local anesthetic to that area, the effect of that anesthetic is less when compared to that of a normal area. Okay, the exact cause of this effect is not known, but it is in that region. Okay, coming to pharmacokinetics of local anesthetics, they are not absorbed from unbroken skin. Okay, but from the mucous membrane, the absorption varies from with that of mucous surface. So absorption is more rapid from the trachea than from the pharynx, while it is poured through the urinary bladder. All these uh, organs contain mucous membranes, right? Okay, many of the common local anesthetics are esters, and they are metabolized by hydrolysis in both liver and plasma. The amide class, the amide like local anesthetics such as lignocaine are dealkylated by the liver. It is excreted unchanged in human urine. So slowly and incompletely, the detoxified drugs, if absorbed, would obviously they produce greater systemic toxicity. The anticholinesterases increase the duration of action of procaine by inhibiting its degradation by plasma pseudocholinesterases. Okay. Coming to pharmacological actions, we'll take cocaine as an example and take the pharmacological actions into consideration. Okay. So the local anesthetic action of cocaine, okay. So it acts on the peripheral nerves as a membrane stabilizer, as I've told how it acts as a membrane stabilizer, and hence as a local anesthetic. Okay, it stabilizes the membrane and acts as a local anesthetic. So the concentration which is used to produce the local anesthesia is poisonous to many structures like leukocytes and the tissue cells. On the central nervous system, it acts as a stimulant. It blocks the reuptake of dopamine and causes the activation of the dopaminergic system, leading to the sense of euphoria. As you have been hearing, like cocaine using people, they will be in a sense of happiness, or in some world they'll be staying. Okay, that is called as euphoria. That's it. They're strongly reinforcing the addicting property. They'll be so much addicted to this drug because of that reason. Okay, so they have that addiction property. It impairs the homeostasis of 5-HT by blocking the uptake of tryptophan and 5-HT itself. Okay, this may account for the striking alteration of sleep-wake cycle and may enhance the central excitatory effect of dopamine. Then coming to cardiovascular system, it impairs the reuptake of adrenaline and noradrenaline by presynaptic nerve endings, which causes the accumulation, that is, retaining of these neurotransmitters at the synapses. So a lot of accumulation takes place of these neurotransmitters at the synapses. Because of this, it activates the adrenergic system, resulting in the hypertension, tachycardia, and peripheral vasospasm. Coming to Sorry, stuck. Coming to adverse reactions. So there are acute adverse reactions and chronic adverse reactions of cocaine. Acute, there are allergic reactions, then activation of sympathetic nervous system, which produces vasoconstriction. Because of this vasoconstriction, there is an acute rise in blood pressure, which results in tachycardia, and a predisposition to acute myocardial infarction, ventricular arrhythmias, and convulsions. It may also result in mydriasis, hyperglycemia, that is rise in blood sugar levels, and hyperthermia, that is increase in body temperature. It may also result in sudden death after administration by any route, since it is metabolized by plasma and liver cholinesterases, as I've told you. People with the deficiency of these two liver enzymes, or people suffering with liver diseases, infants or pregnant women or any old persons are at a very high risk of developing cocaine toxicity. So most deaths due to cocaine are due to convulsions, respiratory failure, and cardiac arrhythmias. Coming to chronic adverse reactions. Although at low dose levels, cocaine, it delays ejaculations in males and orgasms in females. It causes heightened sensory awareness and sexual dysfunctions, and sexual disinterest are seen in long terms. Anorexia, that is, they don't feel like eating, eating disorder, then tremors, disturbances of sensation and emotions, hallucinations, insanity are observed in cocaine addicts. Coming to cocaine, when they are used in pregnant women, it may cause prematurity in newborn and intrauterine growth retardations and microcephaly. Then it has teratogenic effects on brain development. Then it can also cause neurological symptoms, including sudden deaths in the newborn. It also shows drug dependence. That is, the person, they depend on cocaine. They show paranoid and suicidal tendency. If they are not given this drug, they show paranoid symptoms, and they will also have suicide tendencies. It is one of the major drug of abuse, and its withdrawal can cause severe CNS depression. Coming to procaine, it is a diethyl aminoethyl ester of para-amino benzoic acid. It is non-irritant and it is as effective as cocaine. And as a local anesthetic, it is much less toxic when compared to cocaine. So it is a vasodilator, whereas cocaine was a vasoconstrictor. Its disadvantages are that it is poorly absorbed from the mucous membranes, and therefore it has no topical use. So procaine, it is rapidly hydrolyzed by esterases in the plasma and liver and is partly excreted in the urine, and it is conjugated with glucuronic acid and glycine. Coming to lignocaine, lignocaine has other names like lidocaine and also xylocaine. You must have been seen in the hospitals like lignocaine gel or xylocaine gel. They use it for small procedures like per rectal examination or for per vaginal examinations. This is the most common preparations where you see in the hospitals. Okay. This is the most commonly employed local anesthetic. So it is stable. It can be stored for a long time at room temperature, and it can be autoclaved. It has quick onset of action and a high degree of penetration. So its toxicity is similar to that of local anesthetics in equipotent doses. It is also an excellent surface anesthetic. As I've told, it can be applied on skin. Okay. Its solution is its preparation like following infiltration of 0.25 to 0.5 solution. The duration of action will be about 30 to 60 minutes. Okay. Addition of adrenaline in 1:2 lakh, it prolongs the duration of action for about 2 hours. Generally, it is for 30 to 60 minutes. But when you add adrenaline, the duration of action will increase up to 2 hours. Why? Because adrenaline, it helps in the vasoconstriction. The duration of action will increase. So analgesia is complete within a few minutes and recovery occurs very quickly within 2 to 3 hours after spinal anesthesia. This drug is recommended for topical use, nerve blocks, infiltration, epidural injection, and for dental analgesia. For example, like tooth extraction or any small dental procedures, this is used mainly. Okay. Coming to prilocaine. This has similar actions as lignocaine. It does not require adrenaline. Okay. So CNS toxicity is very less and is used for IV regional blocks also. This is also used in dentistry. Lignocaine and prilocaine, these are solid bases, but the combination of equal quantities of these two agents, they result in a eutectic mixture. Okay, this means that the mixture has lower melting point than of either solid ingredient alone. So this lignocaine and prilocaine mixture, they are taken in equal parts, either 2% of lignocaine and prilocaine each or 7% of lignocaine and prilocaine each. They exist as oil with a melting point of 1800 Celsius. Okay, they mix it, they emulsify this with water and they form it into a cream which can penetrate into the skin. So this is called as EMLA. EMLA full form is eutectic mixture of local anesthetic. So equal parts of lignocaine and prilocaine. You have to remember this. This is called as EMLA. Only two are used in this, lignocaine and prilocaine. So this is emulsified with water into a cream. Okay, this allows a higher concentration of anesthetic agent in the cream. So it is topically applied for a dressing where before any small minor procedures, before 30 to 60 minutes of any minor procedures, which serves as an alternative to any infiltration anesthesia for procedures such as any venipuncture or for IV cannulation or any small skin grafting, harvesting or dermatological procedures. Okay, the common adverse reactions which include mild skin blanching or erythema. Okay, however, when applied on any abraded skin or mucous membrane, it results in rapid absorption with systemic toxicity. Coming to bupivacaine. This local anesthetic, it is about 4 times as potent as lignocaine and has more prolonged action up to 8 hours. Okay, its toxicity is similar to that of lignocaine, but it is more cardiotoxic. It is used for spinal anesthesia and epidural anesthesia. When you go to any OT next time, you see the most used drug which is given as spinal anesthesia will be bupivacaine. Okay. Coming to amitocaine, which is also called as tetracaine. It is a potent long-acting local anesthetic. It is effective topically. Its absorption from vascular mucous membrane is very rapid and deaths have occurred following its use in urethra and respiratory tract. So it should never be used on inflamed, injured, or any vascular surfaces. Coming to ropivacaine, it is an amide local anesthetic. Though it is less potent than bupivacaine, it has been claimed to be less cardiotoxic. So it is used for epidural and regional anesthesia and is more motor sparing. Okay, so the duration of action is about 2 to 4 hours. Syncocaine or dibucaine, it is a potent but toxic local anesthetic. So it can be used locally in the form of 1% ointment for anorectal conditions. Benzocaine is poorly water soluble and is used topically as ointment, gel, or liquid spray. Coming to bucricaine, this drug, it is used locally in ophthalmic, dental, and general surgical procedures in much the same way as lignocaine. Bucricaine has longer duration of action than lignocaine. So further, the drug has some inherent vasopressor activity. So therefore, it does not require the addition of vasopressor such as we use adrenaline for lignocaine. So here we don't read any vasopressor for infiltration of anesthesia. So its CNS and cardiac toxicity appears to be less than that of lignocaine. It can be used in patients allergic to lignocaine. So bucricaine has more additional benefits than lignocaine. Coming to general anesthetics. So what are general anesthetics? General anesthetics, these agents, they bring about all loss of sensations, not only to the local area where it is applied, but all over the body. So loss of all modalities of sensations, particularly pain, that is analgesia, inhibitions of autonomic reflections, that is all reflexes are lost. He cannot move his body. Relaxation of skeletal muscles, then amnesia, that is he forgets, like if he has undergone any surgery, he will not even remember what surgery he has, like what is the procedure, what all everybody is talking, or anything that has been done to him during the procedure. And a reversible loss of consciousness. Reversible loss of consciousness means a particular period of time. Okay. So loss of all modalities of sensation, that is pain, inhibition of autonomic reflexes, relaxation of skeletal muscle, amnesia, and reversible loss of consciousness. So classification of general anesthetics. These are inhalational general anesthetics and intravenous general anesthetics. In inhalational, we have volatile liquids and gaseous. Okay, volatile liquids like diethyl ether, ethyl chloride, trichloroethylene, halothane, enflurane, isoflurane, desflurane, sevoflurane, and gaseous like nitrous oxide. In intravenous general anesthetics, we have ultra short acting barbiturates, benzodiazepines, phencyclidine derivatives, opioid analgesics, and miscellaneous. Coming to volatile liquid anesthetics. What are they? Volatile means which are easily evaporated. Okay, the volatile general anesthetics, which are at room temperature, they are extremely potent but are relatively more soluble in blood, cell water, and fat. Okay, both induction means starting and recovery means regaining. Okay, both in induction, starting of anesthesia, and recovery, again that is loss of consciousness and again regaining of consciousness. Okay, if I tell like this, I think you will understand. Loss of that is getting anesthesia and again recovering from anesthesia. Okay, both induction and recovery with these agents are slower than that with the gaseous general anesthetics. Okay, first we'll talk about diethyl ether. Ether, it is a colorless, volatile liquid with pungent, it has a bad odor, bad smell. With the boiling point of 35 degrees Celsius, anesthetic ether, which contains 96 to 98% of diethyl ether. This vapor, it is very irritating. Okay. When it is exposed to air, moisture, or light, it may form ether peroxidates or acetic aldehyde, which are irritant. To avoid this conversion, this is marketed, that is, it is sold in a sealed containers or ambered color bottles, almost like a black color bottle with a black color paper, so that it does not get evaporated. Okay, this is inflammable, and mixtures of ether with air, nitrous oxide, or oxygen, it may explode, burst, or over the entire range of anesthetically useful concentrations. A concentration of 10 to 15% of ether in inspired air is usually required for induction of anesthesia, while a concentration of 4 to 5% ensures a satisfactory maintenance of anesthesia. With a concentration of more than 7%, respiratory failure may develop. Okay, either when it is rubbed into the skin, produces local vasodilation with a sense of warmth and pain. It is used as a cleansing agent. It is also used as a solvent. Coming to pharmacokinetics of diethyl ether, only a minor portion of ether is oxidized within the body. 85 to 90% is eliminated through the lungs, and the remaining through the skin, urine, milk, and sweat. Either it crosses the placental barrier and reaches the comparable concentrations in the fetal blood. Coming to advantages and disadvantages of ether. It can be administered without a complicated apparatus. It has a wide range of safety, excellent analgesic, curare mimetic, and hence causes satisfactory results. It is less likely to precipitate cardiac arrhythmias. It causes little hepatonephrotoxicity. It can be used during delivery, and it is also economical. Coming to disadvantages, it is inflammable and explosive induction is slow and recovery is slow. It is irritant and may cause nausea and vomiting. Increase in salivary and bronchial secretions may cause cough, laryngeal spasms. It may rarely cause cardiac arrest. It may cause convulsion. Especially in children, it exhibits cross tolerance. Coming to halothane, it is a fluorinated volatile anesthetic with structural similarity to chloroform. It is colorless, liquid with characteristic sweet fruity odor. Halothane, it readily attacks most of the metals, including stainless steel, brass, copper, and it may also affect the rubber elements of the anesthetic equipment. Halothane produces the loss of consciousness in the concentration of 2 to 3% in oxygen vapor, and the anesthesia can be maintained by using 1 to 2% of halothane vapor with oxygen and nitrous oxide. Coming to absorption, fade, and excretion of halothane, about 60 to 80% of halothane is eliminated unchanged through the lungs in the first 24 hours. About 20% appears to be retained in the body and is probably metabolized. Advantages of halothane are: it is non-inflammable, non-irritant to the respiratory tract. It is potent anesthetic with speedy induction and recovery. It inhibits pharyngeal and laryngeal reflexes, so it is easy to tracheal intubation. It does not cause any laryngospasm, or coughing, but it is useful for it is helpful by causing bronchodilation. Post-operative vomitings are very less, and it can induce controlled hypotension and bloodless field during any surgeries. Coming to disadvantages, special apparatus is required, inadequate muscle relaxation for an abdominal surgery, slow post-operative recovery. It is a poor analgesic. It depresses the respiration. It can raise the intracranial tension due to cerebral vasodilation. It causes hypotension, which is a major throwback. Post-operative recovery of mental function is very slow. Coming to enflurane, this halogenated volatile liquid anesthetic is chemically 2-chloro-1,1,2-trifluoroethyl difluoromethyl ether. It is non-inflammable with mild sweet odor and boils at 57 degrees Celsius. Chemically, it is very stable. About 80% of enflurane is excreted unchanged by the lungs, and only 2 to 5% is metabolized by the liver. It causes hypotension. It causes arrhythmias. Like halothane, it causes bronchodilation. The compound could produce seizures and involuntary motor activity during deep anesthesia. Hence, it is relatively contraindicated in patients with epilepsy and brain lesions. Coming to isoflurane, this is also a volatile liquid with pungent odor, and it is related to enflurane. Its pharmacological properties are similar to those of halothane, but it is less liable to cause hypotension. The drug is metabolized only to extent of 0.2%. Advantages of isoflurane are it is physically stable and non-inflammable, rapid induction and recovery of anesthesia. It is also a bronchodilator. It has a good muscle relaxation potency. It is a coronary vasodilator and it does not affect any renal blood flow. Hepatotoxicity with this drug is very rare. Considered by many as a near ideal anesthetic. Okay, the most preferred drug for neurosurgery. Disadvantages of isoflurane are it has a very pungent and very irritating to respiratory tract. It causes peripheral and arterial vasodilation and can cause coronary steal and does not protect against local ischemia. Coming to gaseous anesthetics, the most commonly used is nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is a colorless inorganic gas with sweet taste. Nitrous oxide, if it is administered along with air, it produces a stage of excitement, delirium, and also produces amnesia. Hence, it is called as laughing gas. It is commonly used together with oxygen and other agents such as isoflurane. Nitrous oxide, it produces analgesia when inhaled in the concentration of 35 to 40% with air. So the loss of consciousness occurs with a concentration of 65 to 70%. 35 to 40% pain is lost. You cannot feel the pain. 65 to 70% consciousness is lost. Further increase in the concentration of anesthetic agent produces hypoxia. So nitrous oxide has no serious deleterious effects on circulation, respiration, liver and kidneys, and it is probably the safest anesthetic agent. Coming to absorption, fate and excretion, nitrous oxide is not altered within the body and is carried in the form of physical solution in the blood. It is rapidly eliminated through lungs. So it is eliminated through lungs within 2 to 5 minutes after its withdrawal. Advantages, it is non-inflammable and non-irritant, rapid induction and rapid recovery, analgesic in sub-anesthetic concentration, nausea and vomiting are uncommon. Coming to disadvantages, it is not a potent anesthetic agent by itself. It must be supplemented with another pre-anesthetic agent or a muscle relaxant. Excitement may be violent. Carbon dioxide accumulation and hypoxia may develop during prolonged use. Diffusion hypoxia develops at the time of discontinuation of nitrous oxide, and it is dangerous in patients with low cardiopulmonary reserve. This can be prevented by administration of 100% oxygen while discontinuing nitrous oxide. A special apparatus is required for induction of anesthesia with nitrous oxide. It is therefore contraindicated in patients with collections of air in the pleural, pericardial, or peritoneal cavities, intestinal obstruction, occlusion of the middle ear, chronic obstructive airway disease, or emphysema. It may also cause hallucinations sometimes. Coming to therapeutic uses of nitrous oxide, it may be used for both for tooth extraction, obstetric analgesia, and during painful procedures such as changing dressings in burning patients, cleaning and debridement of wounds, and cauterization. When nitrous oxide is given in high concentrations, that is about 70 to 80% with another potent inhalational anesthetics like halothane, it facilitates the delivery of the latter, that is halothane, to blood at a higher rate and helps in the achieving faster induction. So this effect is termed as second gas effect. That is second gas, that halothane is delivered at a faster rate. Coming to non-volatile general anesthetic. Ultra short acting barbiturates. The ultra short acting barbiturates administered intravenously to produce general anesthesia are the thiobarbiturates like thiopental, thiametol, and thiobarbitone, and methylated oxybarbiturates like hexobarbitone and methoxytone. The compound employed most commonly are thiopental and methoxytone. Methoxytone is twice as potent as thiopental and short acting. Coming to thiopental. Thiopental sodium is readily soluble in water. High alkalinity can cause local irritation and venous thrombosis. When it is given intravenously, it rapidly induces hypnosis and anesthesia without analgesia. Okay. Coming to absorption, fate, and excretion of thiopental. It has very short duration of action and high lipid solubility. The rapid metabolism of the drug by the liver may also contribute to its short duration of action. With successive doses, body fat depots get saturated with the drug. Slow release of the stored drug back into the plasma is responsible for the prolonged recovery and continuation of the drowsiness observed after the cessation of anesthesia. Thiobarbiturates readily cross the placental barrier and appear in the breast milk. Coming to advantages, non-explosive and non-irritant, easy to administer, very rapid and smooth induction, and rapid recovery after small doses. Quiet respiration, there is no cardiac arrhythmias, nausea, vomiting, and excitement, post-operative complications, and very infrequent. Coming to disadvantages of thiopental sodium, it is a very poor analgesic and muscle relaxant. Coming to pharyngeal and laryngeal reflexes, they persist for a long time, which are permitting to cough, apnea, and laryngospasm and bronchospasm. Hence, equipment for controlled ventilation must be available. Depression of the respiratory center and produces hypotension. Barbiturate anesthesia is to be used with great caution in the presence of hepatic or renal damage, in shock, in airway obstruction, in individuals with past history of bronchial asthma or severe cardiovascular disease. Coming to therapeutic uses, for induction of general anesthesia as anesthetic agent for operations of short durations, example for fracture reduction, dilatation and curettage, laryngoscopy and bronchoscopy. Methoxytone preferred during electroconvulsion therapy. as an anesthetic in patients with history of malignant hypothermia, head injury, and brain tumor, as an anticonvulsant in the emergency treatment of intractable seizures. Coming to propofol, this drug as an IV anesthetic causes rapid induction and rapid recovery with small hangover effect. It is generally used for sedation, induction, and maintenance of general anesthesia for brief ambulatory procedure. It causes dose dependent cortical depression and is an anticonvulsant. It is largely 88% metabolized by the liver and partly cleared by the other mechanisms. Coming to advantages and disadvantages of propofol. Advantages: it has a specific antiemetic action and is less likely to cause bronchospasm. Because of its quick onset of action and pleasant recovery from anesthesia, it is now preferred to thiopentol for intubation and endoscopy and a daycare surgery. It is safe during pregnancy and may be combined with an ultra short acting opioid such as ramifentanil. Disadvantages of propofol are: it has a narrow therapeutic window. Excess dose can cause greater sedations, myocardial, and respiratory depressant effects than other IV agents. Prolonged IV infusions can lead to acidosis. The emulsion formulations are painful. Pre-treatment mixing with lignocaine can reduce the pain. Fospropofol, which is a prodrug of propofol, a water-soluble prodrug, is claimed to cause less pain on IV injection. It is hydrolyzed by endothelial alkaline phosphatase to propofol. Coming to midazolam. Midazolam, this is short-acting benzodiazepine and is used either intramuscular or intravenously for sedation and anesthesia. It is also used as pre-medication or anesthetic adjuvant due to its sedative, anxiolytic, and amnestic property. Its onset of action is rapid and T-half is 2 to 4 hours. The IV dose is 2.5 to 7.5 mg. The usual intramuscular dose is 5 mg. So with the IV administration of midazolam, the same precautions are required as that of IV diazepam. It has also been used for subcutaneous infusion by a syringe pump as an anticonvulsant. It is a relative safe drug. Benzodiazepines, they do not produce true general anesthesia as the awareness about the surrounding remains. So motility also remains. Hence, the surgical processes are difficult to carry out under benzodiazepine anesthesia given alone. Coming to general anesthetics. In this, we have ketamine, which is a chemical related to phencyclidine and acts as an antagonist to NMDA receptors. Given intravenously, it is a quick acting, although the onset of action is slower than that of thiopentol. Following a single dose, it induces a state of dissociative anesthesia, which is characterized by complete analgesia combined with amnesia and catatonia with or without the loss of consciousness. The patient can open his eyes and can obey instructions. Respiratory support is not needed. Analgesia lasts for about 40 minutes, whereas anesthesia lasts for about 50 minutes due to rapid redistribution. Anesthesia can be induced by both intramuscular, that is 5 to 10 mg per kg of dose, and IV with 1 to 2 mg per kg routes. Okay, the drug increases the blood pressure, heart rate, and cardiac output by activating the central sympathetic system and preventing peripheral reuptake of noradrenaline. It can be used in patients with shock. Coming to disadvantages of ketamine, sometimes it causes nystagmus, involuntary movements, and hypertonus. It may cause delirium, hallucinations, and colorful dreams during inductions and recovery. Rarely, laryngospasms may occur, salivations may be troublesome. It increases intraocular and intracranial pressures. It is a drug of abuse, that is, it is also called as day trip drug. It can be used as an inducing agent, but its use in the low dose in combination with other anesthetic agents such as propofol is preferred. It is a choice in poor risk elderly, children, and patients with asthma. Coming to etomidate, this drug has potent hypnotic and anesthetic properties. A single IV dose of 300 micrograms per kg produces the loss of consciousness within 10 seconds and a state of anesthesia followed by sleep. Okay, recovery is rapid and complete due to redistribution. It is preferred in elderly patients prone to hemodynamic instability and those with poor cardiovascular reserve. The drug, however, commonly causes pain on injection and postoperative nausea and vomiting. It is primarily used for induction along with opioid analgesics, as etomidate has no analgesic effect. Opioids help during endotracheal intubation and reduce involuntary muscle movements. Coming to pre-anesthetic medications. Pre-anesthetic medications means before giving anesthesia, these are the medications which are necessary to be given. Why are they given? Because for sedation, to reduce the anxiety. Before giving anesthesia or prior to any surgery, the patient will feel very anxious or very scared to undergo any surgery. Seeing the needles or seeing the scalpels or any instruments, they will be very scared. So reduce that, seeing the doctors, they will panic. So not only that, or there are other medications why they are given, we'll see. Okay, what are the medications, why are they given? For sedation, to reduce the anxiety, apprehension without producing much drowsiness, to obtain an additive or synergistic effect so that the induction could be smooth, rapid, and the dose of general anesthetic could be reduced. Okay, then to counteract certain adverse effects of the anesthetic drug used such as salivation, bradycardia, and vomiting, to relieve the pre and post-operative pain, to suppress respiratory secretions, and to reduce the reflex excitability. So all these are the points why we give the pre-anesthetic medication. So what are the drugs commonly used for the pre-anesthetic medications? Such as opioid analgesics, such as morphine, pethidine, buprenorphine. These are generally employed for their sedative and analgesic properties before any major surgeries. Then we also give sedatives and tranquilizers like benzodiazepines like midazolam, diazepam, lorazepam, which are preferred because of their safety, muscle relaxant property, and are less respiratory depression properties. And also antimuscarinic drugs like atropine. It is generally combined with morphine to block the vagal actions so as to reduce the salivary and respiratory secretions, to prevent the parasympathetically induced reflex, hypotension, and bradycardia. And also like antiemetics, the most commonly used phenothiazines such as promethazine and trimiprazine have antiemetic properties and thus may help to prevent the post-operative nausea and vomitings. Other drugs, like in addition to use of above mentioned drugs, proper pre-evaluation and specific pre-medications are needed in patients with special problems such as chronic lung disease, emphysema, ischemic heart diseases, diabetic mellitus, hypertension, undernutrition, and debilitated and old people. All the other drugs should be given prior to anesthesia. Okay, antibiotic prophylaxis also is much needed. On the other hand, it is also advisable to discontinue drugs like combined oral contraceptive pills 4 weeks before any major surgery. Then monoamine oxidase inhibitors 2 weeks before the surgery, then warfarin 3 to 5 days before surgery, aspirin 7 days before surgery, then lithium 2 days before any surgery. So these are the pre-anesthetic medication rules which have to be followed. Thank you. So these are the topics: local anesthetics and general anesthetics. Hope you have understood. Thank you.